All right, guys. So since he won the election, Trump has been on a little bit of a speed run to appoint his future presidential administration that will take power in January of 2025, assuming that liberals don't do their own successful version of January 6th. Now, in my previous video, I believe we covered Secretary of State Marco Rubio, EPA head Lee Zeldin, and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, all of whom I think are atrocious picks in their own rights that we covered in the previous video. But since that, we have somehow taken the insanity, the absurdity of Trump's future administration to an entirely different level. So I have some positions here highlighted, some of which we're going to get into more detail on in terms of what Trump has been up to over the last couple of days. So we start out with this. Attorney General Matt Gaetz, not a typo, not a joke, Matt fucking Gaetz is going to be the next Attorney General of the United States of America. Now, keep in mind, some of these require Senate approval, some of them do not, but based on what the Senate leadership under Republicans, because they won control of the Senate in this recent election, they're saying that they are going to approve of Trump using basically recess appointments to get some of these people in. So it may not matter how absolutely insane some of these people are. They are likely, I would say, to get these positions if Trump really plans on following through on it. So starting off with Attorney General Matt Gaetz, and we'll get to more of him here in a minute. We also have HHS, Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. RFK Jr. is potentially going to be the most powerful person in the country in terms of directing U.S. health services. RFK Jr. We have Border Czar Tom Homan, more on him here in a bit. Defense Secretary, no joke here, Fox News host Pete Hegseth is going to be the head of the Defense Department. We have Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who to me at this point is a complete wild card. I genuinely, in terms of national intelligence, in terms of foreign policy, I don't really know what she believes. This is somebody who was very critical of Trump during his first administration. This is somebody who, claims to be anti-war, but then is in many circumstances like pro-war on terror. I don't really know what she believes in. I don't know what she would do in this position. So this to me is a complete and utter wild card. We also have U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Now, we'll get to him here in a second. This is potentially, given his belief system, the most insane pick on this entire list. U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. We also have the Department of Government Efficiency led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. Department of Government Efficiency, Doge. Not a joke. Again, a lot of this may seem sarcastic. It's not. They made a Doge department. Doge, as in like the cryptocurrency, dog crypto thing that Elon helped to set up. Department of Government Efficiency. Now, keep in mind, Elon Musk is not only the wealthiest man in the world, but he has billions of dollars that he has received in government contracts, as well as tax breaks on top of that. He is a major donor to Donald Trump, if not one of the largest donors to Donald Trump. He was in charge of significant portions of Trump's ground game, right? And on top of that, he has basically made Twitter, or X as he calls it now, into a right-wing hellscape that's borderline unusable at this point. He's also said previously that he would be willing to try to cut up to $2 trillion from the U.S. federal government budget, right? More than the entirety of our discretionary budget in this country, meaning he wants to slash and burn every single major government agency, right? Now, we also have here, finishing off, Department or Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security, Stephen Miller. Mr. Borderline neo-Nazi himself, and borderline is being generous there. Now, we move on to some further details in terms of some of these ones that I highlighted. Here we start off with Matt Gaetz, an interesting appointment, to say the least. So, some of the baggage that Matt Gaetz carries with him. Here from NBC News, woman told House Ethics Committee that she saw Gaetz have sex with a minor. So this guy is potentially going to be heading up the most powerful governmental legal agency in the entire country. A guy who I think has been credibly accused of having sex with a minor is going to now lead this agency. Now, something that you will notice amongst all of these appointments is that they fall into two categories. Number one, the most important one, is loyalty to Trump. That is the main standard that he has for making these kinds of decisions. But number two is loyalty to Israel, right? Those are the two main things that are a direct through line with all of these appointments: loyalty to Trump and loyalty to Israel. That's all that you can surmise these picks from Trump with. Now, some further details on this. A woman told the House Ethics Committee that she saw Matt Gaetz, who was President Donald Trump's pick for the U.S. Attorney General, have sex with a minor. They say, quote, "My client testified to the House Ethics Committee that she witnessed Representative Gaetz having sex with a minor at a house party back in 2017. So, some further details on this situation in terms of this House Ethics Committee report. So, this committee was set to meet this week, right? This is November 13th, so 3 days ago. They were set to meet basically last Friday, right, to decide as to whether or not to release this report on Matt Gaetz allegedly having sex with a minor. Now, Matt Gaetz, knowing that this appointment from Trump was coming, decided to resign immediately before this House Ethics Committee report was going to release. And so because he resigned in taking this position in the Trump White House, there is a debate going on as to whether or not the House can now release this ethics report. And according to the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, he says he's not going to release this report. So you had a report that was set to release in a few days on Matt Gaetz allegedly having sex with a minor, and he resigns his position to take a position in the Trump White House, thereby potentially blocking this report from being released. This is your future Attorney General, guys. Now, another take that I saw floating around here, this is Fox News, right? So a right-leaning source that we're going to here. A contributor, Ben Domenech, weighing in on Matt Gaetz, giving some personal testimony in terms of his reputation around the House. And I read through this entire thing multiple times. This is not hyperbolic. This is not far off from what other people in Congress say about Matt Gaetz. So he says here, "I realize that we are occasionally given to hyperbole about the untoward nature of politicians, but let me be clear. Matt Gaetz is a sex-trafficking, drug-addicted piece of shit. He is abhorrent. His eyes are permanently rimmed with the red rings of chemical boosters. In person, he smells like an overexposed Axe body spray and stale Astroglide. The fact that he boasted on the floor to multiple colleagues in the House of Representatives of his methods of crushing Viagra and high-test Red Bull to maintain his erection through his orgiastic evenings is perhaps the least offensive of his many crimes against womanhood and Christian faith. The man has less principles than your average fentanyl-addicted hobo. Jesus Christ. He likes them underaged, and he's not ashamed about it. Matt Gaetz isn't just your average extreme Florida MAGA man. He's a hypocritical ass with the worst Botox money can buy. That's true. Pursuing an ever thinner nose and higher cheekbones at every opportunity like a Real Housewives gone mad for fillers. Every Republican in Washington has an opinion of Matt Gaetz, and 99% of those opinions are, quote, keep Matt Gaetz away from my wife, daughter, and friend, and anyone that I care about. This, again, is not far off from what it seems like is the vibe that Matt Gaetz gives off to his colleagues in Washington. I've seen numerous reports that this is the kind of guy who walks around the floors of Congress showing nude photos to other members of Congress about the women that he has recently slept with. This is your future Attorney General, guys. we move on, because it's not just Matt Gaetz for AG. Again, I told you guys that probably the most insane of any of these appointments in terms of ideological positioning is this guy here, Mike Huckabee, right? Here he is discussing his beliefs of Israel, Gaza, the West Bank, Palestinians broadly. I warn you guys, because Mike Huckabee essentially believes in the sort of death cult philosophy within evangelical Christianity that there needs to be full Jewish control of what he calls biblical Israel in order to bring about the end times, so that Jesus comes down, he fights the devil, everybody dies, including the Jews, right, who are basically just pawns in this equation, and it brings about the end times in this showdown between Jesus and the devil. He believes in the end of the world, and that it is imminent, right, and that if we just support Israel enough, that can bring about the end times, which he is very excited about. He wants the end of the world. He is happy about it. He loves it. This is according to his own words. Let's just look at a little clip here in terms of how he feels about Palestinians.
As you well know, I've never been willing to use the term West Bank. There is no such thing. I speak of Judea and Samaria. I tell people there is no occupation. It is a land that is occupied by the people who have had a rightful deed to the place for 3,500 years, since the time of Abraham. So a lot of the terms that maybe the media would use, or even people against Israel would use, are not terms that I employ, because I want to use terms that live from time immemorial. And those are the terms like Promised Land and Judea, Samaria. These are biblical terms. And those are important to me. And so I will continue to follow that nomenclature unless I'm instructed otherwise.
So he does not believe in the concept of the West Bank. He does not believe that there is an Israeli occupation of Palestinians. He simply believes that Israel, as controlled as a sort of Jewish ethno-state, has a right to expel, I guess, anybody who they deem unworthy or not part of their coalition from the land, right? So he is fully in support of the Zionist settler colonial project of expelling native, Palestinians and Arabs who have lived in that land generation after generation. He fully believes in a biblical prophecy here that he must support Israel to the fullest extent possible, to the extent to which he denies basically the existence of Palestinians as a people. This is who Mike Huckabee is. This is who Donald Trump decided to appoint to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Miriam Adelson, who gave Trump, $100 million to essentially enable the Israeli annexation of the West Bank. She's definitely getting her money's worth here, right? Now, again, I told you guys, the two major through lines in terms of Trump's appointments are loyalty to him and loyalty to Israel. Here we have another video. Let's see, I'll put this on 1.25 times speed in terms of what Mike Huckabee believes in regards to this end times cult philosophy here. We have a clip of him interviewing one of these Christian evangelical authors. Let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of this.
It's about the end times. And quite frankly, some of us think we may just be living in them. So, Max Lucado, so good to see you. Thanks for joining us, and welcome as we talk about the end of the world.
Well, Governor, I wouldn't be anywhere else. I'm supremely honored to have these moments with you. And yes, I do believe we're not just in the end times. We're in the end of the end times. It's moving fast.
Max, when you say that, it scares a lot of people. They think, oh no, the end of the world. That's just terrible. Your whole book is focused on quite a different perspective about the end times. You say in this book, it's not something that we ought to be afraid of. It's something we ought to embrace and look forward to. So how does a person look forward to the end of the world?
I am so excited about the end of the world. I really am. Every time I read more past.
What in the goddamn fuck are we doing here, guys? I'm so excited about the end of the fucking world. That's where we're at now. We have a U.S. ambassador to Israel, right? Kind of a key region here that we're discussing in terms of the biblical prophecy that these guys believes in. They're talking about how gleeful they are about the end of the fucking world. This isn't a joke, guys, right? It's one thing if this is just like your crazy uncle or your crazy aunt or whatever the case may be talking shit at Thanksgiving dinner. We are talking about some of the key positions, some of the most powerful and influential positions on the face of the planet, and he's talking about how gleeful he is about the end of the world. This is what they want to happen. They want the world to come to an end. They want there to be an apocalypse. This is not a joke. These are going to be some of the most powerful and influential people on the face of the planet who are actively gleeful about the end of the fucking world. And it's not just that. I mean, again, we had a video here. I don't even need to play it at this point because it's kind of summarized in the previous two. But I mean, Mike Huckabee, Trump's pick for ambassador to Israel, denied the existence of the Palestinian people. No such thing as a Palestinian. He endorsed the illegal annexation and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Also, this guy, Pete Hegseth, Fox News host here, right, who has a Crusaders tattoo on his chest, I believe, here from the Times of Israel, Pentagon chief appointee, suggested new temple could be built on the Temple Mount. Here's a little bit of what Pete Hegseth had to say about the issue. He says there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible. I don't know how it would happen. You don't know how it would happen, but I know that it could happen. Hegseth also appeared to endorse annexing Israeli settlements, an effort that backers of the effort often describe as applying Israeli sovereignty to Judea and Sumeria, using biblical names for the West Bank. He says a step in that process, a step in every process, is a recognition that facts and activities on the ground truly matter. That's why going and visiting Judea and Samaria and understanding the sovereignty, the very sovereignty of Israeli soil, Israeli cities, locations, is a crucial next step to showing the world that this is the land for Jews and the land of Israel. He also rejected a two-state solution in the Palestinian conflict, saying, if you walk the ground today, you understand that there is no such as the outcome of the two-state solution. There is one state. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, he's right. There is effectively one state. It's an apartheid, sort of Jewish ethno-state or Jewish supremacist state that is continuously ethnically cleansing Palestinians from the West Bank and is now doing a genocide in Gaza. Guys, these are the kinds of people that Trump is appointing to his administration. You know, if there were any questions about, okay, what would be the difference between a Biden and a Trump administration in regards to Israel and Gaza? In terms of what's happening in Gaza, not much of a difference, right? Obviously, they're already doing a full-blown genocide. They've completely ignored any sort of checks on, Israel that Biden has laid for it or any sort of red lines. There wouldn't be much of a difference, but if there was, this is the difference, is that the Biden administration has and still is pretending to care about a two-state solution. They pretend to care about humanitarian principles or whatever the case may be, even though they're bullshitting. And we all know that it's bullshit. The Trump administration is going to go full-blown biblical fascism inside of this region. That is what they are doing. You have people who believe in an end times cult philosophy and ideology and are fully committed, according to their belief system, to allowing Israel to fully ethnically cleanse the Palestinian people. And they are proud of it. They don't hide it. They don't hide behind international law or humanitarian language or principles or rhetoric or whatever the case may be. They are fully proud of it. He is the Secretary of Defense in a few months, and he is openly saying, we don't even want to pretend anymore about caring about a two-state solution. There's one state. It's the Israeli state. They have a right to ethnically cleanse Palestinians from the West Bank. That is what he's saying here, guys. These are the people Trump is appointing. Now, we finish off because we also had guys on that list like RFK Jr. Just a few of his, I guess, conspiracy theories is what you would call them here. So he claimed that vaccines cause autism. For years, RFK Jr. has promoted the theory that the preservative thimerosal, which has been largely phased out of modern vaccine formulas, appears to be responsible for a rise in autism diagnoses, and that the government knew but knowingly allowed the pharma industry to poison an entire generation of American children. They say that this has been thoroughly debunked with a consensus amongst a number of certified health organizations, including the CDC and the WHO, as well as more, who found no credible link between vaccines and autism. We move on. We also have this here. Kennedy was caught on camera back in July of last year in 2023 telling fellow diners that, quote, COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. And that, quote, the people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. Somehow this is not viewed as like wildly anti-Semitic, that this was like a Jewish Chinese plot to attack black and Caucasian people during the COVID pandemic. This is not anti-Semitism, but, you know, calling for a ceasefire or an arms embargo is anti-Semitism in this country somehow. But these are the kinds of things that RFK has said over the years. They also say that he claims that the FDA suppresses advancements in health, which to some extent there's, you know, some sort of an argument there. But in an Twitter post from October 25th, he says the FDA wages a war on public health that includes aggressive suppression of products that advance human health and can't be patented by the pharma industry. Okay, I mean, fair enough, criticism there. He went on to promote raw milk, unpasteurized milk that can contain dangerous germs, but has the same nutrition as pasteurized milk. I don't even know. I don't know what we're doing here, guys. I drink milk sometimes. I'm not an expert on this issue. I don't know that I would be comfortable drinking just like straight up raw milk. Maybe it's good for you. I don't know. Tell me if you guys are milk experts, but I don't know, man. That seems kind of nasty to me. We continue. Kennedy has promoted the disproven conspiracy that 5G cellular networks, an advanced wireless technology standard for mobile phones, allow governments to collect user data and control their behavior. He also told Joe Rogan in a June podcast interview that Wi-Fi radiation causes cancer and that it opens your blood-brain barrier to toxins. Again, what are we doing? What are we doing here? What is this? He has promoted the theory that AIDS is not caused by HIV. He says that fluoride is causing diseases such as arthritis, bone fractures, bone cancer, IQ loss, neurodevelopmental disorders, and thyroid disease. Fluoride in the water that I guess is put in the water to promote positive teeth health, right? Dental hygiene. So, listen, guys, I'm not an expert on a lot of stuff. I defer to the scientific process on a lot of these things. I think that you can point out that there is some degree of corruption in the FDA and in, whatever other government agencies that are in control of a lot of these things. I mean, we certainly have many, many health issues that we're facing as a country, whether it's like, obesity or the fact that we don't have, reliable access to clean drinking water through our public water systems. There are, artificial additives in foods that can be detrimental. There are microplastics in basically everything that we consume. There's certainly a lot that I guess I've heard RFK Jr. gesture towards that I could sort of get behind. But when you hear shit like this, it's a bit questionable, right? A little bit questionable in terms of allowing this man to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. But I don't know. You guys tell me about that. Now, we also finish off here, before I end off this video, with the mass deportation plan that Trump is planning on carrying out. I mean, the aide, Tom Harmon, this guy here, who is going to be leading the charge on all of this, is threatening a shock and awe campaign on day one of the new administration. This is also the same guy who previously said in this clip, and I don't even need to play it, but essentially what he said is that, is it possible to deport millions of people without doing mass family separation? And he said, yes, it's possible because we'll just deport the entire family unit, right? So even children who were born here in the United States who are granted U.S. citizenship could be deported alongside their parents who potentially have lived here for years and years and years, who have done really nothing wrong, but, who are not documented citizens. So he's talking about mass deportation of millions and millions of families across the United States. So all of this is horrifying. All of this is horrifying. There is really no way to over-exaggerate this. I mean, I know that I'm sort of like, going balls to the wall and trying to show you guys what these people have said in their past, what they potentially could represent, what this may mean looking forward. But like, there really isn't a way to make this seem worse than it is at face value. We're talking about RFK Jr. for HHS, Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense, Lee Zeldin for EPA. It really does not get much worse than this. And again, keep in mind, the two main things that Trump used as deciding factors in making these choices is loyalty to him and loyalty to Israel. Those are the two main things. So I predict this administration is going to be an utter and complete disaster from day one. I think there may be some struggle to get some of these guys through on appointment. Maybe they just use the recess appointments to skirt by Senate approval. Who knows how this is all going to play out. But we are in for a nightmare few years here, guys. So brace yourselves.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying